So a bit of a preamble. Feel free to skip ahead if you're not interested in a short discussion about the channel. Any regular viewers will be accustomed to my style of videos. Video essays about games, shows, films, and sometimes even albums, often with an underlying message about philosophy or politics. While I absolutely love making video essays, they aren't going away anytime soon, I do find them, in specific circumstances, a bit limiting. A video essay has to be first and foremost an essay. A piece of writing with a thesis, or to analyse or push a certain perspective. So the breadth of what I can talk about is limited to what I can write an essay on. For smaller pieces, kinda like the Halloween video I recently put out, Horror Where It Shouldn't Be, writings I create without a general thesis or topics I don't have a massive amount to speak on don't really make the light of day. To remedy this and give myself a little bit more freedom back, I'm proposing a new form of content to the channel, what I've dubbed Ruminations. Originally was going to be called Meditations, but while talking it over with some friends, the word Ruminations was uttered, and we spent like 30 seconds gushing about how good of a word it was, so it only feels right to use it. My aim for these is to hit the sweet spot between an essay and just a general ramble. They won't have a super analytical and tightly worded aspects of a video essay, but it'll allow me to talk about things that I think are pretty cool. Imagine it as a structured ramble, which is full of media references because there's no better way to get a point across than to point at someone else who's already done it. This video is a test. If I enjoy the style, or it does well, I'll bring it back. And if I don't enjoy it, I still might bring it back because I'm really lazy and these are way easier to put together. With all that out of the way, we can get started on the video. Winter is a strange concept. Once every year, the place we live turns into a barren, inhospitable land. Temperatures drop to freezing, the leaves of trees drop off and die. A significant portion of wildlife hibernate, sealed away from the world. The loss of daylight becomes ever more present, plunging us into a darkness earlier and earlier. The wind bites at your skin, and the slightest bit of dampness can sear into you with the pain of 1,000 knives. Yet it stands out to many as the best time of year, a time of community and celebration. Not a lot of people would object to curling up beside the fire with a hot beverage while a blizzard roars on outside. It's truly the yin and yang of the natural world. With every frozen tundra, there's a blanket waiting to warm you up. This dynamic has always interested me. How can something so quote-unquote objectively bad be so desirable? English Romantic poet John Keats wrote The Human Seasons in 1818, topically the same year that Silent Night was first performed in Austria, or as they would have called it, Stille Nacht. In the poem, Keats likens the 4 earthly seasons to our lifespan. Firstly, when we are young, we have spring. He has his lusty spring, when fancy clear, takes in all the beauty with an easy span. As we grow to maturity, our prime years, we experience life's summer. To ruminate and by such dreaming high, is the nearest unto heaven, quiet coves. And in our twilight years, we face autumn, the first sign of the end. His soul has in its autumn, when wings he furleth close, contented so to look on mists in idleness, to let fair things pass by unheeded as a threshold brook. And eventually, old age, death even, is where we experience our winter. He has his winter too, of pale misfortune, or else he would forego his mortal nature. I really like Keats's work here, the understanding of human life aligned with the cycles we pass through each year. Although we ourselves do not die every single year, we experience death, maybe through a loved one or a celebrity, or maybe like Keats identifies, we experience death through the decay of the seasons, summer's bliss melting into an autumnal grave, frozen over with the snow of winter. We see death everywhere during winter. As I previously mentioned, the bareness of the trees, and the reclusiveness of wildlife, but a more metaphorical form of death can be seen in snow, the white blankets that lay themselves down, coating any surface they can stick to. Once settled, the land is cast into a colourless void. Various films have reinforced this connotation. Oren's death in Kill Bill, Jack's end in The Shining, and probably the best example I can give, John Carpenter's The Thing. Throughout the film, for those who haven't seen, a group of Antarctic researchers are systematically picked off and killed by well, a thing. The snow acts as an ever-present threat, to some degree worse than the thing, looming over the minds of the characters, the blizzard always faintly audible from the confines of their outpost. It breaks one of the biggest pitfalls that many other horror movies face. Why don't the characters just run away? Haunted house? Just leave. Evil killer? Just leave. But in some twisted way, the chances of you surviving the thing are infinitely higher than facing the Antarctic weather. The coldest weather ever recorded on Earth was minus 89 degrees Celsius, or for the Americans in the audience, minus 128 Fahrenheit. Just for reference as to just how terrifying that fact is, at minus 28 degrees, your skin can freeze while on your body in around 30 minutes, 10 minutes for minus 44 degrees, and roughly 2 minutes for minus 55 degree temperatures. The average temperature for the Antarctic is minus 57 degrees. Maybe I'm getting sidetracked from winter here and just talking about the cold, but Jesus Christ, that is 2 continents of our planet that will kill us for even existing on them. And when our habitable weather system starts turning like that of the poles, we celebrate it and we write songs about it. So maybe there's something more to winter, specifically the cold, than just a death trap we've fallen in love with. For some, snow doesn't always mean death. There's a beautiful composure to it, and snow is often used to represent a stillness or preservation of time. After beating the stray demon and grabbing the peculiar doll in the first Dark Souls, you gain access to the painted world of Ariamas. For those not caught up with Dark Souls lore, the painted world was created as a means to seal away the shame of the gods, and anything that could threaten their reign. For example, crossbreed Priscilla, daughter and failed experiment of Seath the Scaleless, as well as weapons, miracles, and followers of Velka, the goddess of sin. The snow found throughout Ariamas plays a much different narrative role than in the hostile wastelands of The Thing. Instead, it creates a more nostalgic and sorrowful tone. It also works as a literal metaphor. What better weather for a place stuck in time, with people unable to leave, than being frozen over? The best times you'll have with snow is most likely during your youth. With little responsibility, you can sledge or make snowmen, when you still have that childlike joy and whimsy untainted. So the use of snow in Ariamas invokes a sentimental feeling within us, almost covering up the horrors you'll have to face during your stay. And yes, I'm talking about those bone wheel tunnels. Genuinely, fuck whoever made those. But to speak on a place more literally stuck in time, dream bubbles. In the 2009 webcomic Homestuck, there exist dream bubbles, where the players of Suburb can visit while dreaming if they've died in their dream planet, either Prospit or Durst. Dream bubbles also house the souls of players who have died in both the dreaming and waking world. While there's a lot of cool stuff to talk about here, I'm just going to focus on one specifically, and that's during Act 5, Act 2, where John Egbert and Vriska Circuit finally meet, and wouldn't you guess, it's in the snow. This is narratively important for a bunch of reasons, namely that Whisker and Jegbert kind of have a thing for each other at the time, which, side note, is completely wrong and not canon in my eyes. Real Visresi fans, rise the fuck up. But it's also one of the only times in the comics that Whisker isn't being a complete shithead to everyone around her. Maybe because it's a dead version of her, or maybe it's a form of reverse pathetic fallacy. If you weren't paying attention in GCSE English, pathetic fallacy is giving human emotion to non-human things, often used for weather. For example, rain falls when something sad is happening. So to have it reversed would be the characters responding to emotively infused weather. Whisker is acting calmer and more open because the snow is providing her with a sense of serenity. So maybe winter isn't all doom and gloom. Let's take a closer look at where the happiness of winter derives from. A big example that springs to mind is the celebrations that take place. Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and the winter solstice, just to name a few. A lot of the celebrations are religious in an ever-growing secular world, so maybe it's not the celebrations themselves, but what they represent. The gathering of people, families, friends, having an excuse to see the people that matter to you the most. There's a quote in the essay Return to Tapassa by Albert Camus, a French existentialist philosopher, that holds true to this notion. In the depths of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer. What Camus is saying here is no matter how bad things get, the metaphorical fire within you will burn brighter, while the rest of the world is hiding away or decaying for the warmer seasons. Humanity stands alone in a rejection of this. We see the death around us and we revel in it. Whether conscious of it or not, we take a true existentialist or absurdist stance. In what should be our darkest months, we embrace it and rebel against what the universe has set out for us. I think this idea is quite beautiful. To see so many people united in this fight against seasonal depression. In the second Christmas special of the best sitcom ever made, Community, Britta puts it pretty well.
It's the crazy notion that the longest, coldest, darkest nights can be the warmest and brightest. Yeah, and when we all agree to support each other in that insanity, something even crazier happens. It becomes true.
Works every year, like clockwork.
So this winter, instead of cooping up, reach out to some friends, see your family, spend times with others, and bask in the knowledge that we are fighting against the natural cycle of life. Because is there anything more 21st century human than ignoring clear signs from the environment? I hope you've enjoyed this shorter video, and I'm sorry for the lack of uploads. I've just finished with a bunch of essays for uni, and exam season is right around the corner, so I can't promise a big change yet. But I've been Unijoy, and you have been entertained.